Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kylie and today we're going to be talking all about eyeshadow. One of these days my hair will look cute again in a video, but today is not that day. Today we're going to be talking about eyeshadow. We're going to be going over like step by step, just basic eyeshadow stuff. So, first things first, I already have my eyeshadow and basically my face makeup done. I got a little bit of bronzer and highlighter and stuff on. Now, I'm doing a basic eyeshadow look today, so I'm not worried about a ton of fallout or anything. What fallout is when you're working with the eyeshadow and putting it on your eye and then a little bit comes on your face down here. That's what fallout is. So I'm not too worried about it right now, and I will show you ways to try to avoid a fallout also. But when I'm doing a smoky eye or an eyeshadow look that is more colorful and more likely to have a lot more fallout that's harder to clean up, but then I will do my foundation last. So that's just preference. It might be easier for you starting out to do your eyeshadow first, because then if you make a mistake, you can just take a baby wipe and wipe it away without having to ruin your foundation or anything that you've already applied. So again, it's just preference, whatever you like. So the first step in doing your eyeshadow is to prime your eyelids. Now you can do this by using an eyeshadow primer, your foundation, or concealer. What I like to do is use my concealer. I do have lots of eyeshadow primers and I sometimes use them, but I find concealer works just fine for me. The other reason I like to use concealer is because my eyelids are they're not really veiny totally, but they look better when I cover it up with concealer, pretty much. So this also helps me have a more cohesive look for me. So again, just preference whether you use an eyeshadow primer, concealer, foundation, whatever you would like. So I use my concealer, I just apply it under my eyes and then I take it up on my eyelids as well. I've already used this. Then the other important part is to set your eyeshadow primer afterwards. The reason that I do this is because if I'm going straight into an eyeshadow after I applied my concealer or my eyeshadow primer, it may be a little bit tacky and sticky, but when you set it with a powder, you're going to take that tackiness and stickiness away, so your eyeshadow is less likely to skip. Now again, this is also preference, but for me, for this type of eye look, it's easiest to set the eyeshadow so there's no chance of skipping and it's easier to blend. So I just use my setting powder, and then when I'm setting my face with my setting powder, I just lightly tap over the eye as well, and then I'm good to go. First things first, I'm going to point out to you the parts of the eye so when I'm talking about them, you know what I'm talking about. This part here, everywhere that your eyeball basically moves around, is your mobile lid. That's your eyelid. This spot here is the inner corner. This is the outer corner. And then this is just the remaining lid space, or the middle. It doesn't have a special name. The space between your mobile lid and your eyebrow is the crease. Then you have your brow bone. That's basically it for the parts of the eye. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to be using my Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons palette. I love this palette, and it's got a lot of great neutrals in it, so that's what we're going to go into. So the first brush that I'm going to go in with is the Morphe M441. Now these are all brushes that you can buy at Ulta. So they're easily accessible, or you can get them on Morphe.com. This is your basic blending brush. This is one of the most important brushes you're going to want in your collection. The first shade that I'm going to dip into is Cashew Chew. This is going to be my transitions shade. A transition shade is the first shade that you're going to lay down in the crease to start the blending process. You want everything to sit on top of each other really well. And Jaclyn Hill just actually came out with a blending video, and she described it really well. You want to give your eye look an ombre effect, and to do this you start with the lightest color and you gradually work up. So that's what we're doing. So Cashew Chew is the lightest color in here that I'm going to take. I'm going to dip into that. The next thing I'm going to do is tap off my brush The reason we do that is to tap off any excess. I don't know if it caught it on camera, but some powder fell out. There's two reasons you do this. One is it lessens the chances of having fallout under your eyes. The other reason is so you don't have too much product on your brush at one time. If you're going in with too much product, you can get patchy. And it's also better to go in with less product and add more as you go. So I'm going to start in my crease, and again you can see my crease is right here. I'm going to start in my crease and a little bit above. I have hooded eyes, so I like to bring mine up. As long as you're not bringing it up all the way to your eyebrow and you're leaving a little bit of space, then you're fine. So I'm going to start right here. And then just windshield wiper motions, blend it all in. The other thing I'm doing is I'm holding my brush towards the end. The reason that I'm doing that is because the closer you hold it to the front, the more pressure you're putting on the brush. And you don't want a lot of pressure. You want to go very light-handed because we just want to blend, blend, blend. And also the reason we're using a brush like this and not a smaller, am I in focus? Not a smaller brush is because if you use a smaller brush like this or something, then you're gonna have more chances of getting a harsher line, whereas this really blends it out. So far this is what we got. It's not a huge difference color-wise, which is okay. This is just, like I said before, our transition color. Just a color to get us started for everything else to sit on top of. The next shade I'm going to use is Almond Truffle. It is one shade darker, and I'm going to use the same brush and basically go in the same places as we did with the other one. I want to stay off of the lid and away from the eyebrow, just keeping in the crease. But we're just deepening up the shade. I'm also starting out towards the outer corner, so that's where the most pigment is. And then once it starts getting less and less on my brush, that's when I'm bringing it in more towards the inner corner. Once most of the pigment is off of the brush, that's also when I start making bigger circular motions and I'm bringing it up a little bit more. Again, keeping away from the eyebrow. I'm also dragging the eyeshadow out all the way to the tail of my eyebrow. You don't want to bring it in all the way in here and that's where you stop, because then it'll look funny. So rule of thumb for me is to always keep it out as far as the tail of your eyebrow. All right, can we see the difference already? Not a huge difference, but big enough of a difference. Now, since I have hooded eyes, when I'm looking in the mirror and looking down, it usually looks good when I'm placing like this, but I have to look straight ahead in the mirror, because when I look straight ahead at you, you can see the eyeshadow darkness here, but in this area it gets lost. That's because I got all this little hoodie skin right here. It just kind of covers it up. So I have to look straight ahead and make sure that I'm going high enough up with the shadows. When you're putting shadows in the crease, these are also going to be matte shades. You want to stay clear of shimmer shades when in the crease, because this is basically a contour shade. Same thing with the face. If you watched my contour video, your eye shape has contour and highlights, and this is one of your contour shades. So right now it is helping me push my the hoodedness of the eyes. It's helping push that back. So if you put shimmer in this area, it's going to bring your brow bone, this part of your eye, forward more, and you don't really want that. The other thing I'm doing is patting this in the outer corner as well and bringing it slightly on the lid. We've got our transition shade, a crease shade, which they're kind of the same thing, one's just darker than the other. Now we're going to go in with a even darker shade, and this is going to be for the outer corner, the outer V area. So I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller brush. This is the Morphe M433. Now it's still another blending brush, but on one side it is a little bit thinner, so you can get into some places a little bit easier than you can with the really thick blending brush. So now I'm going to take the shade Mocha, tap off my excess, and I'm going to start packing, doing slight packing motions on the outer corner and outer V area. This is also another blending technique. Instead of actually going back and forth, just packing it on like this is also blending. I'm bringing it about halfway on the lid. Now with this shade, I don't want to bring it up as high as the rest of the shades were. I want to keep it only in the crease. See how this shade goes all the way up here? I don't want to go all the way up there with this dark shade. I want to keep it in the crease and lower. That's why this brush is really good for this, because it's a little more flat on that one side, so I can really focus it in the crease. Then once most of the pigment is gone off of the brush, I'm going to just slightly blend it towards the inner corner, just to make sure that there's no harsh lines between this darkest color and the lighter colors. So there, that's what we got so far. The next thing I'm going to do is take the first blending brush we used. I'm not taking any more product. All I'm going to do is sweep this in the crease back and forth slightly, just to make sure that everything is blended smoothly. Now, I usually do this several times throughout the look just to ensure that I didn't miss any harsh lines. Now, I'm not trying to drag it up or down or anything because I don't want to muddy the colors together too much. I just want to sweep it back and forth quickly to make sure it's all blended. The next brush I'm going to take is the Morphe M167. This is a flat synthetic packing brush. So this is fantastic for packing shadows onto the lid. This is where you can get a little more fun and add some shimmer. Today I'm going to keep it matte, and I'm going to go into the shade Divinity. This is a creamy matte white shade. So I'm going to take a little bit on the packing brush, tap it off, and then I'm just going to apply it to the inner corner and about to the middle of the lid, to where the two colors meet. And with this, I'm not swiping like I did with the blending brush. I'm packing it on back and forth because we want to make sure all the pigment sticks. Once that shadow is down, again, I'm taking the first blending brush that we used and going back and forth in the crease again, because after putting this down, you do get some harsh lines where it meets the crease. The next thing I'm going to do is take the second blending brush, the M433, and no extra product on this one either. Just tap it in the outer corners and towards the middle where the two colors meet, the brown shade and the white shade, just to make sure those two colors are blended together as well, because if you don't go over this, you can have a harsh line where those two meet. You could stop here and call it a day, but I always like to do the under eye. I feel like it makes the look more complete. I'm going to take the Morphe M431. This is a small pencil brush. Now, it's a lot more stiff than the other brushes that we just used, and we can be a lot more precise with this. So I'm going to take the darkest shade that we used, which is Mocha, get a little bit on the tip, tap it off, and then I'm going to run this as close to my lash line as I can get without poking my eye out. And I'm starting in the outer corner, and I'm going to blend it in towards the inner corner, but I'm not taking it all the way in. I want to stop a little bit short of that because I want to keep the brightness towards the front of my eyes. This is going to make me look more awake, and it's also going to make sure my eyes don't look so close together. And I also connect this shade with the top eyeshadows as well. After that is done, I'm going to take the 433, the smaller of the two blending brushes, go in with the shade Almond Truffle, tap just a tiny amount, and I'm also going to run this under there. Now this is a little bit bigger, so I don't have to go down as far. I'm going to keep it close to the lash line, so it'll blend this line out so this line's not so harsh, but also add a little bit more color underneath the eye. And I'm doing the same thing, starting out in the outer corner and bringing it in a little bit closer. but not all the way into the inner corner. I could stop right here, but I like adding more depth to the eyes. So I'm going to go one shade darker and keep it only in the very outer V of the eye. So I'm going to use a smaller brush. This is the Morphe M507. It is another blending brush, but it is a lot smaller. And then I'm going to take the shade Bordeaux. Dipping into that, tapping off the excess. And again, I'm keeping this only in the outer V. So starting at the lash line basically, and then creating the V shape. Keeping it in the crease, I'm not going above. And I don't want to drag it in on the lid very much either. I just want it focused on the very outside. And I'm doing like little baby circular motions just to make sure that I don't have any harsh lines. And then once I think most of the product is gone, I'm going to go out a little bit further and in a little bit further in the crease. Just to continue making sure it's all blended. And there you go. See, that made a huge difference and it was very little product. I'll finish the other eye and I'll be right back. The last step we're gonna do is take the pencil brush, the M431. I have this little switch thing, it's from Sephora, but you can get these at the dollar store now. All it is like a little sponge in a tin, but you sweep your brush in here so then you can use different colors. Because I used a really dark color, I'm just switching it off so I can now use a really light color. Is again, take the very first blending brush that we used and go over top of this one just to make sure these are all blended and there's no harsh lines. I'm going to now take the shade Satin Sheets. This is a shimmer shade, and I'm going to use this to highlight my brow bone and the inner corners. So up here is my brow bone. So I want to highlight the high points. Why does my eyebrow look so funny? Like part of it wiped off, I think. So I'm gonna highlight the high points of my brow bone with that shade. I don't want to go along the entire brow. Again, just the high point, which is where the arch is. And then once all the product is off, then I will blend it more towards the inner and outer corners. And there we go. That is pretty much it. We only used 5 brushes, so I'd say that's pretty good. Again, you can get these all at Ulta, so they are very easily accessible, and these are very cheap too. I think the most expensive one was $8, if that. I don't remember exactly. The real trick to it all is to just make sure you blend it all out. Do not stop until that harsh line is gone. And I didn't have any harsh lines to begin with, really, and that is because when you go in with the right brushes, first of all, having the right brushes is definitely key. Second of all, doing those motions and starting with a little bit of eyeshadow at a time and building it up is going to help you tremendously. Another main thing is to continue going back and forth. I know it's a little bit more time consuming, but it really helps the look in the end. And again, starting with your lighter shades and building up to the darker shades is gonna be, I think, a lot easier on you. If you can get these steps down, then you can do pretty much any eyeshadow look. All you do is just swap out the colors and boom, you can do so many different things with it. So you do what's best for you. These are just a couple tips that for those of you who are beginners and don't know where to start. Hopefully this is easy enough. If you do want a simpler look to try, let me know. I can do even simpler than this, but you can really take this look and turn it into anything else just by swapping out the colors. So anyways, I hope you guys learned a thing or two today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I will get back to you. Also, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and please subscribe to my channel. We will see you in the next one. Bye.